Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. Gee, there's not a lot to talk about today. Not a lot of news.
Not much.
We'll start with some pre-show stuff. Toronto Greenhouse says that I should get some oxygen if I get fired up to talk about the Leafs. No, I just honestly, when I am faced with an argument that I've been faced with for a few years regarding backup goaltending, I just, first of all, backup goaltending does not have that much of an effect on a team unless it's really bad, like it's been for the Leafs the last couple of years. So if you get good or average backup goaltending, which I think is possible to do without giving up one of your best prospects.
Let's not start again. Yeah. We're not going there again.
So I'm just illustrating my point that Ack and Russ were way off base. All right, let's start. And as somebody's calling me in, and it plays Apocalypse in 9/8 from Supper's Ready, but go continue.
1984, on this day, the Mets got Gary Carter from the Expos. Thanks, Expos. Appreciate it.
Nobody cares.
let's talk about the cheating Patriots, because yesterday the story broke and there was this setup like, hey, it's a production crew and we got the credential through the Browns. There's a whole cover story, right?
Yeah.
But there's also a reporter on Twitter that reported this cover story was the same thing that was in Spygate, the same exact cover story. So I was skeptical. I saw that post from yesterday. I was very skeptical. A few writers tried to talk me out of it, guys who cover football on the radio and such. I wasn't buying it. And it wasn't because I'm a Jets fan. It's because I know the Patriots and their propensity for cheating. So what happens, start of the show. So what happens then is we find out a few hours later that the Patriots said, yes, we cheated, but it's the production company that did it, and they didn't know any better. Unknowingly was the word, right?
Yeah.
In a very weird PR statement that actually people were saying, and it's funny how on Twitter they pick something apart, but it wasn't aligned to the left. Like they basically, when you looked at it, it wasn't centered. It was centered, but it wasn't aligned like a regular letter is supposed to be. So they knew that everybody said they did this in haste. They didn't believe them. And then, of course, today it comes out that there's 8 minutes of play footage, 8 minutes of all plays. Now, if you are interviewing a scout and you're trying to get background material for this show that they do, which they do a show, but the cover, I've seen enough Man from Uncle to know a fake story that I hate now. I couldn't come up with a better spy one.
Star Trek. I told you, Star Trek.
No, but it's spy.
Oh, Mr. Impossible. There you go.
Mr. Impossible. Theirs was a little more elaborate, but at the end of the day, 8 minutes. There's no reason to have 8 minutes of plays if you're interviewing a scout. So the cameraman wanted to delete it before the NFL confiscated it, before the Bengals turned them in. So you know what? The fact that the NFL has done nothing up to this point is really a joke. It's horrible.
I don't know what Bada Bing has been smoking, but he says the Patriots are cheaters like the Yankees. No, it's the Astros, you doofus.
Right. I am a Yankee hater, and I admit it. I don't hate Brian Cashman. I met him. He's a great guy. I don't like the Yankee emblem or the team, but there's players that obviously that have liked Jeter or whatever. They've never cheated. Just stop.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I think I have a possible explanation here because they said it was like 8 minutes of basically B-roll. So I think what the Patriots crew was doing was they were recording the B-roll for CBS so they could substitute that in for Niagara Falls on Bill's broadcasts.
No, but like on a serious note, once in a while we've heard in the playoffs an NHL team kicking out the opposing team's somebody that may be sitting in the crowd, but never videotaping for like 8 minutes.
I could give other NFL teams the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this situation, but not the Patriots, and not after there. And I retweeted the video. The Patriots were caught watching the Bills practice before the game. It was actually Belichick's son that was sitting up in the crowd watching them. And I'm like, I mean, I'm sorry. It's like, now, what's the old adage? It's not cheating. If you're not cheating,
if you
you're
get
not
caught.
Right. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, and it's only cheating if you get caught. Well, they've been caught more than a couple times.
At this point, Kraft and Belichick should be suspended indefinitely. They really should.
Now, will they? No.
No, because, and again, this does float with the integrity of the game, because how bad off do the Patriots have to be if they are filming the Bengals? Just think about this for a minute. A team with one win that beat the New York Jets, and I think that's their only win.
Now, yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, I mean, come on. All you have to do is watch their games to notice how pathetic they are. Now, I have to bring this up because we saw that the contract that was signed by Steven Strasburg by the Washington Nationals, 7 years, $245 million, $35 million a year, came out today, and this is a shock, that $85 million, 1/3 of the salary in this deal is deferred. And that's like
that's why they paid so much more than market value.
Right. Rendon apparently was offered a deal before the end of the season, and a ton of the money was deferred.
I still think he's going to end up accepting that deal, because I don't think there's a better deal for Rendon out there.
Well, no, I actually don't think that's the case, because the GM of the Nationals came out yesterday at the winter meetings and was asked about Rendon, and he says we had room for one. So
so that deal was on the table, and now they took it off.
Right. So they signed Strasburg. They basically figured it would be easier to replace Rendon, cheaper, shorter contract than Strasburg. But
it didn't happen. Okay.
But this is the thing. Imagine if, bringing it to hockey, imagine if the NHL allowed deferred payment. And so you could stretch out deals that normally would not be 6-year deals to 8 years to minimize the AAV. And then for these teams that don't want to pay the full boat, they could spread that out over years after the deal. I don't know why. I'm not sure the reason why. Now, is that an inherent advantage for big money teams like the Rangers, the Flyers, the Leafs, the Canadians? Yeah, but the players benefit from it. So why would it be a problem?
I guess at the end of the day, we'll use Ottawa as an example. If you defer payments with Ottawa, which I believe they would do if they were allowed, probably a lot, what would that do to the value of the franchise if it gets sold? That's a problem.
True.
Now you're inheriting that debt, right?
Right. Yes, and we know what that's like with the Mets. No, I'm serious. I mean, you had arguably the richest owner in professional sport now taking it over, and it was for basically it was for market rate, and that's like the first team in professional sports in like the last 10 years that has gone for what like the market said it was going to go for. It was always advancing the ball. It was always like $2.5 billion for the LA Clippers. So that means that probably Cohen paid off, not you, Russ, but Steve Cohen paid off a massive amount of that probably Bernie Madoff Wilpon debt.
Well, which is ridiculous in the sense that these guys are real estate guys and they sold something for under market value. Just think about how bad a businessman they are for that reason alone.
Well, I mean, they also said the factor was that I guess Fred Wilpon is in his 80s and he doesn't trust his son to run the organization after.
I mean, I can't imagine why. Right. But here's the other factor, Mike. Now they could pay the Islanders. They have to give them a check, remember?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe Belmont will actually get built now.
So, I mean, so Cohen is really helping two projects.
There you go. All right, we'll start the show. Ack will be joining us any moment. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Obviously, the big news of the day, and it was a little bit shocking, but as the news has come out, and we're not going to speculate it because right now,
they're not telling us anything.
Yeah, we don't. I would remiss to speculate the reasons why. It hasn't been reported yet, so we'll leave that until to the others to go out and expose that. But right now, we talked about coaches that were on the firing line at the beginning of the year, and the odds had Jim Montgomery as the lowest odds. I think it was 4-1 that he would get fired. And both Russ and I looked at that and said, that makes no sense. They got to within an overtime goal of the conference final. It doesn't make any sense. And, then the Stars started really, really slow, but then they had a really long, I think they went 12-1-1 in like 14 games or something ridiculous like that. Well, they had a recent losing streak. They had an incident where Alex Radulov was healthy scratched. I'm not sure whether those things have anything to do with it, but
actually, I watched the press conference, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a good portion of it. Nils said this had nothing to do with players past or present.
All right, so this is something.
It most likely is away from the rink.
Right. This is something off the ice, but Jim Montgomery was let go today as the head coach of the Dallas Stars.
Even Nils said he's a great coach. So just think about that for a minute. As well as they're doing, that's why Mike and I didn't understand it, and that's why we're blindsided today, because the record's really good.
Yeah. But, and like I said, we're not going to speculate about what that will come out, but it's a little surprising. Now, Rick Bowness, who is I think he was a former Ottawa Senators head coach. He's been an assistant coach in a number of places. He takes over as the interim head coach. I know that they brought up Derek Laxdal, who was the head coach of the Texas Stars, to come in and join the Bowness's staff. So we don't know whether maybe this is a situation where Bowness is just there to stabilize the situation.
I think it's just an interim staff. That's what I think.
Yeah. Now Bowness, I'm looking up here. He was assistant coach in Winnipeg, head coach in Winnipeg for half a year, Boston for a year, Ottawa for a year, head coach, 4 seasons, head coach for the Islanders for a couple years, Phoenix as an interim assistant in Phoenix, assistant in Vancouver, Tampa Bay, and so long-time assistant with a head coaching experience. So it's logical for him to be chosen as an interim, but I don't know whether this is a situation where, I'm sure this hasn't caught Nil completely by surprise, because Nil is the one who, in the end, fired Montgomery. But in terms of where they're going to go, in terms of hiring a new coach, it may just simply be Bowness for the rest of the year. I don't think so either, because this team, like the Leafs, this team has Stanley Cup aspirations.
Right. And it's no slight to Rick Bowness. I just don't think they're going to put all the eggs in his basket. I don't.
Now, the question is, and this is the question that nobody's asking right now, is, who could it be if it's not Bowness or Laxdal? I mean, I don't know Laxdal's experience in terms of how many years, but I don't think it's a lot.
I don't think it's a ton. I mean, I'll give you one easy name is Bob Hartley. Bob Hartley is over in the KHL.
But he just signed an extension with Avangard.
He probably has an escape clause, though.
Yeah. Now, Laxdal has been head coach in Texas ever since Willie Desjardins left, which I think was 2014. He did win. He was with the Edmonton Oil Kings for 4 years as a head coach, won the WHL championship twice, has coached 5 years going on 6 with Texas, made the Calder Cup final a couple years ago, but lost in the first round a couple years. You can't really put that on him, because he obviously an AHL team is subject to the players being called up from the to the NHL. But a decent record. I mean, maybe there's a chance, but I mean, you mentioned. What is the possibility of Willie Desjardins? What is the possibility of Ken Hitchcock? I mean,
I don't think that much. I'm going to give you another name.
Okay.
Based on the fact that they have a really good core of assistants and everything else, would they try and lure Mike Modano?
Is he a coach? Has he coached?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. I mean, we've seen other players try and coach. Would they try and do that? Because he has a role in the organization, right?
Yes. Well, yes, he does, as sort of like a senior advisor. But I think
what if Modano goes to Jim Nill and says, "Give me the opportunity"? they might give him the rest of the season with these guys.
Yeah. Now, Michael in the chat mentions a name that's been out there for a while. I've heard his name mentioned in terms of openings. That's Lane Lambert, I believe, assistant coach with the Islanders. He was in the mix. Oh, God, where was it?
Who is not giving up an assistant in season? No.
Well,
no.
Yeah.
Permission. There's no chance.
Yeah.
Zero. Most teams, like John Stevens is another one. Teams are not giving up these assistants in season. They are not.
And that's why I mentioned a guy like Hitchcock, because he coached in the league last year. He's tied to the organization.
But he already went back and failed already.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. It's like, who else is out there? So, it's gonna be very interesting to see what direction they go. But I'm sure this has thrown that organization for a loop.
Yes.
And they have a ton of talent, but that's why Russ and I didn't really expect this to happen, because it really wasn't foreseen, and I'm not sure. Now, I have to say I'll be interested to find out the reasons why this happened. But the statement from Jim Nill said, the Stars expect all of our employees to act with integrity and exhibit professional behavior while working for and representing our organization. This decision was made due to unprofessional conduct inconsistent with our core values. And Gary Bettman, I guess, at the Board of Governors meeting said this had nothing to do with the recent four-point plan that they've implemented in terms of, coaches and interaction with their players and abuse and whatever. Now,
what about Ron Washington?
Yeah, there you go.
That's a joke, people. Look it up.
Esmir says Guy Boucher.
No, nobody wants Guy Boucher.
Yeah, and this is the thing. You have to factor this in. Guy Boucher, I'm not saying that Guy Boucher was abusive. I'm not saying it was. But Guy Boucher is a coach that burns out his players, or burns out the relationship with his players very quickly. That's something that, he gets the most out of that team for like the first year. He did that in Ottawa. He did that in Tampa Bay. I don't know if they want to go down that road. And how many bites of the apple does Jim Nill get? He hired. Well,
this is out of his control.
Right.
And this is something that he just got a call about. So it's not from bad vetting. So I think he gets a pass on this. I'm telling you, I would go Bob Hartley. I would call him up and ask him if he's got an out. Because if you think about it, he's got just the right amount of experience. He is good with people. If you ever talk to Hartley, he's great with the media. I think that's what you're looking at there. I think he is perfect here. So I would like to see him get a guy like Bob Hartley. I do.
Now somebody mentions it in the chat, and I'll bring it up just to shoot it down. El Guapo says Babcock, and I'm like,
no.
In this, you got to factor this in. In this atmosphere, right now, Mike Babcock is unhireable.
Right.
Maybe next year
when things settle and.
Yeah, next year after things are settled down, and he says, "Well, I've had my come to Jesus moment, and I've reflected on my actions in Detroit and Toronto, and I'm ready to turn a new page, a la John Tortorella, and try that." And maybe somebody believes that, and maybe somebody says, "Okay, we'll give him another chance." Anna doesn't buy that. I'm not
buying it. I'm not buying it. I really don't think Babcock is an option right now. I don't think they would go that route. But again, Dallas might be. I really do think there's a chance someone like Modano, because he has been in the organization, with the organization. He has been around the team a bit. I kind of think guys would listen to him, at least in the short term.
Anything's possible. I'd just be simply guessing. Now, just to touch on
because guessing, Mike. Come on.
Yeah, there you go. Just to touch on, because I mentioned Babcock. Brendan Shanahan was at the Board of Governors meeting, spoke to the media, said he was not aware of Babcock's the incident regarding Babcock and Johan Franzen. He doesn't dispute that it happened, but he was not aware of it. And that means he wasn't aware of it when he hired him. Because I think basically Shanahan is saying, well, if I don't know if I'm going the next step. I'm assuming that he's saying that if he had known, that would have maybe prevented him from hiring him. I doubt that, simply because that organization needed a Babcock at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, that maybe that commentary was acceptable in the hockey world. It's not acceptable now. The mores have changed in the league, mm-hmm. and browbeating a player like he reportedly did with Franzen at that point was acceptable. I don't think it's a great optic, but anyway. All right, let's touch on some other things from the Board of Governors, and we'll talk about some games and some other information. Act will not be joining us today. Now, I heard
Dono's in Minnesota right now, but I kind of think they would let him go if they.
Yeah.
I heard he wasn't with Dallas at the moment. That's what I was.
I thought he was with Dallas, but I'm not.
Yeah, I looked it up. Yeah, he's not.
I heard a couple days ago the plan that was being talked about regarding the World Cup of Hockey, right. And it confirmed today that the plan that was being floated by the NHL was to have a World Cup of Hockey tournament in place of the All-Star game.
Right. And we mentioned that yesterday.
But in place meaning in February.
Yeah, see, I don't like that.
Well, I mean, that was which I would assume would mean that they would have a 2-week break to have a 6-team or whatever round robin tournament in the middle of the season, and start the year earlier, probably cutting back on the preseason games. Well, that was summarily shot down.
Of course it is.
By the Players Association negotiating with Gary Bettman. Bettman came out and said it's dead. And the reason it's dead is because, and that the statement came out afterward, was the fact that they're not ready to commit to the Olympics.
Well,
and I'm telling you right now.
Why did they go with the February? Why didn't they go with September?
Because September doesn't work.
It does work, and I'll tell you why.
Okay. Does it work in terms of the players buying in and wanting to play for their country and being fresh and all those things? Yes. Does it work in terms of generating interest? No.
I disagree in this sense. There's two things. I was just talking on SiriusXM about this, and Mick Kern had a great point. My point was, I would rather it in September because you come out of August and you're looking for hockey.
Yep.
This is hockey, right? So you do get a cool tournament before the season starts rather than an inordinate amount of preseason games. That's one thing. Mick made a great point, though. He's like, look, as a sports fan, you need to be able to follow something. We have to know when it's going to be on consistently and when it's going to be on consistently. And if it is, then people will get used to it. And we knew that last year it would start next September. We would all be on board with it, and so would fans, and they would be buying tickets already. But if they were going to do it for February now, they would literally be putting tickets on sale like in September of next year or something like that.
Right.
And nobody would know. Like, it would be like a total surprise because it's different from the first time. There's no consistency there. And sports fans like that consistency of an event. Like, hey, this is only this time every year.
My argument against the World Cup of Hockey in February is the same argument I have against the Olympics in February. You're interfering and you're interrupting the regular season for a tournament that has no real. I mean, it's got fan interest, yes, but it's a tournament.
Hold on.
Meaningless.
We loved Team North America. We did.
Right.
And they actually said if they had another one, they would have done away with it. We loved Team North America. That was fun.
Yeah, and of course they've already announced that the next World Cup there will not be a Team North America, there will not be a Team Europe. Okay, so that means you're probably going to have maybe an 8-team tournament with teams like Slovakia and the Czech Republic who have no chance of winning. So it's going to come down. You'll have meaningless first round or meaningless round robin games against teams that have literally no chance. I mean, okay, like I'm saying, it's like I get why the
I mean, but Mike, if you're going to go with that route, how much chance does Kazakhstan have of winning the World Juniors?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on.
Right. There are sacrificial lambs in all these tournaments.
Right.
And I think that's weak. It really is. But all I'm saying is that, everybody wants the best players to go to the Olympics, but for the NHL, it has no benefit. It actually, you have players who could be star players for your teams that could get hurt, a la John Tavares in 2014 in Sochi. Luckily, in that aspect, the Islanders were not a playoff team, and it didn't have much of an effect. But imagine if Connor McDavid, gets blows an ACL in a game against Slovakia in the Olympics, that kills the Edmonton Oilers. If you want to do that tournament before the season, if you want to do it in place of the World Championships, be my guest.
I would do the World Cup in place of preseason games. That's what I would be doing.
Right.
I would cut down the amount of preseason games. I think everybody would be in favor of that.
Yeah, because preseason games, even coaches nowadays are saying 8 games. This is why teams keep 45 players on their roster so they can rotate one. I mean, these games are meaningless.
I mean, they're not meaningless to young players trying to make the team. They're not, but there could definitely be fewer of them.
Right. So that's one thing that came up. The other thing that came up, and as usual, there is a projection regarding the salary cap. Bettman, according to Elliot Friedman, he says he wouldn't be pinned down on a cap number, said that it'll be negotiated with the players. He's referring to the right, the elevator clause in the CBA to inflate the ceiling as much as 5%. The current cap number is 81.5. There is a belief it could get to 84 to 85 million, depending on future conversations. Now, I heard a couple days ago that there is a greater chance of the PA using the escalator on for next year, because a number of contracts were structured where next year the amount of salary was significantly lower and bonuses were significantly lower because they expected next year to be a strike year. And now with the CBA extended to its full 10 years, that the amount of escrow would not be if right now left as it is, it wouldn't be as much, and that if they use the escalator clause, that it would not increase it to what it normally would be. So I have a feeling we'll get closer to 84 or 85, because right now, remember that most people think that the escrow, the cap will go up to 83.5, 2 million, right. And that's a third line player or a third pairing defenseman. It's not
84. I think 84 is the number, but we say that every year, Mike. And if you just saved your money, that those two third or fourth line players could have been a second line player.
Yeah, but the problem is that these general managers are like degenerate gamblers in a casino. They can't control themselves. They see the instant gratification of getting the guy that they want signed to that deal, and salary cap be damned. And I'm not just talking about guys like
Kyle Dubas. Spend like $1.8 million on a backup next year.
Well, I'm not just talking about Kyle Dubas. There are a number of teams out there that are doing the same thing. And I know you made your little joke about Kyle Dubas, but whatever. So I really don't know how to answer it, but what the hell? All right, so let's look at some of the games last night in the NHL. The Tampa Bay Lightning they continue to be a little bit of a puzzling situation right now. They lose 5-1 to the New York Islanders. The Islanders are just hopping along, singing a song. They're doing great things. Lightning I know they have 4 games in hand, and everybody talking about this today is pointing out, well, they got a lot of games in hand. So, yeah.
Games in hand it's fool's gold, because you have to be good to win the games in hand.
Right, and right now
they're not good.
Right now they're not good. Right now, like, it's puzzling. They're not playing defensively sound. They're not getting A+ goaltending from Vasilevsky.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think
they're getting good goaltending, but I don't think they're getting A+ goaltending.
Okay, but again, it does go back to the defense. So I watched pretty intently yesterday and have been kind of keeping an eye on them. I still back up my claim that John Cooper shouldn't be the coach. But whatever, if they feel like they have to get their money's worth, they're going to suffer another mediocre season. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think, though. When you've got Luke Shen on the ice, like Luke Shen is barely an NHL player at this point.
Yeah, he's a 6'7" defenseman.
But if he's going to impact your game, Luke Shen against the Islanders is like a dream for Barry Trotz. Because the Islanders are just waiting for him to make a mistake when he's trying to clear it lazily off the wall. And that's exactly what they did yesterday. I'm looking up to see how many minutes he played, but we've talked about Ryan McDonough before. Great player, but he has a lot of heavy minutes, hard mileage on him. He's not the same. Their blue line stinks, Mike.
Luke Shen played 13 minutes and 7.
Think about that. How could Luke Shen play 13 minutes on an NHL team? You can't do it. You can't. So
I heard Pierre McGuire talk about this morning, and I'm not sure I completely agree with it, but I think it's a viable excuse. Now, first of all, they clearly have not recovered from the.
This is not booze, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. Anna saying, "I know it's vodka." Clearly, they haven't recovered from the first round loss to Columbus, but you sort of have to get over that. But look at the players that they lost in the offseason. Callahan, Girardi. They traded JT Miller.
Character guys.
A lot of guys who held other teammates accountable, and really, what did they added? Patrick Maroon, Kevin Shattenkirk. They have a couple young guys that have, I'm looking at the roster last night. Corey Conacher, who scored a goal, which is, that's a John Cooper guy.
That's another reason to leave him in there for 20 more games.
Right. They called up Mitchell Stevens. So they have a Carter Verhaeghe, who led the AHL in scoring. I don't think is an NHL player.
No.
So, what they replaced a lot of veteran guys with.
I still don't think that's the problem, Mike. They have an insane amount of talent on the team.
I agree.
I'm going to tell you the two problems that I really saw that were coming through last night, and it was the worst team to do it against, the Islanders. They pressed their foot on the gas pedal as much as they could in the offensive zone, and if a puck took a bad bounce off the glass or somebody was in too deep, the Islanders were going the other way with it because they have just as much speed and they're waiting for you to make a mistake. That's what they're going to do. They're never going to be the aggressor. They're just going to wait for you in transition. And you know what? The Tampa Bay Lightning fed them with that. Now, as far as the Tampa Bay Lightning power play, considering the guys on there, it's awful. I don't know what they're ranked, but I mean, Braden Point looked lost on the power play.
Yeah, I don't. There are players who we know are world class who are just
coaching.
Well, and I don't know how long Cooper can survive, but I said this. I said this about Babcock, and I didn't know about all the.
Right, we didn't know everything else.
Right, but with Cooper getting a long-term extension last year, I can't see if they miss the playoffs, he's going to get fired. But if they sneak in and then have a good playoff, then he's golden. His position as a head coach is locked in place.
Yeah. So Tampa's got the second best power play percentage, but they looked awful last night. That's for sure. But again, I just think when they're playing regular 5-on-5, they are going too deep on everything. And in this NHL, you make one or two mistakes against the Islanders, you're never going to catch up. And then the rest of the game, you're trying to play catch up. But the Luke Shen lazy clear on the wall was exactly what's wrong with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Columbus beat Washington 5-2 last night. So a couple upsets. Columbus beating the Caps is an upset. The Senators beating the Bruins 5-2.
That's a massive upset.
That's a massive upset, especially
Bergeron played in that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Anthony Duclair had a couple goals, I believe.
And he had a couple goals against the Flyers. He's gotten hot.
Yeah, he's got 15 goals, but he's still not leading the team in scoring. That's J.G. Pajot, who scored his 16th last night.
Right.
Now I'm just checking to see who played.
By the way, could Columbus use those 15 goals? Like, seems like Torts didn't have any time of day for Duclair, and yet somehow he's got 15 goals.
Yeah, Tuukka Rask. There's a video going around on Twitter of Tuukka Rask breaking his stick over at.
I love that, the Tuukka smash, man.
Yeah. He's done that a few times, that's not like any kind of like sort of tendency of like he's losing his cool. He does that all the time. But the most interesting outcome last night was the Flames beating the Colorado Avalanche 5-4 in overtime. The Flames are now unbeaten 5-0 with Jeff Ward as their coach. There was a lot of concern about their play under Peters, and that really had nothing to do with the reason why he was fired, although I think there are people that were starting to talk about Peters getting fired because of the underachievement of the Flames. Now they seem to be turning on under Ward. I mean, Ross, I thought this team was too talented to be playing the way that they were playing.
I was watching that game, and it was pretty evenly matched. Like, things were going back and forth. Colorado misses Cale Makar. I mean, let's call it, because Girard was running the power play, who's really good, don't get me wrong. But he even, he's not Cale Makar. And so that does affect them to a degree. And Makar is so good at skating the puck out of his own end that it did affect them. McKinnon was still amazing. Like, it's just what this guy can do on a game-by-game basis is incredible. And like I said, he's right in the Hart Trophy voting again because he's pulling it off. But the Flames did really well. I saw some really good efforts. Monahan, I thought Hannafin looked good. This Rittich, held in there. The one thing about Rittich is we all agree he's not like an elite goalie, but he does battle.
Yeah, no, he does. He gives him a chance. I'm just shocked that after bringing in Cam Talbot, that they wouldn't rely on Talbot more as a backup. Now he didn't play for most of his stint in Philadelphia after he was traded for I think it was Stellaris, but I thought he would get some playing time, and really it's been all Rittich. So that's a little surprising. But
Francouz is the one, or how are you pronounce it?
Francouz.
I mean, so they did get a break in net a little bit.
And Makar didn't play because he's out with the whatever upper body injury. Everybody's saying it's a shoulder. Now, here, talking about injuries, I mean, that's a key injury for the Avalanche. It doesn't sound like it's going to be long-term, but, he's one of their best players in his rookie year, so it's going to be – that absence is going to be felt. Arizona loses Jason Demers week to week with a lower body injury. They're already without Yarmulson. Yarmulson's not supposed to be back until at least the new year, maybe longer. Russ, I saw Arizona play recently against the Sabres and against the Leafs. They were rolling Chychrun, Demers, Ekman-Larsson, and Goligoski to over 20 minutes. Their bottom pairing, they barely play. I don't think there's anybody in that organization that they can really put in to replace Demers' minutes. I'm starting to think that Chaika is going to have to go out looking for a defenseman.
Well, I mean, they were in Philly recently. And Robert Hagg has been playing pretty regularly since then. Phil Myers, just didn't play again the last game. Could you see a Robert Hagg trade? I could. That makes sense. That would fill Demers' minutes. Like, that's the perfect kind of trade. They'll have to give up probably a bottom six forward, but I think they have enough of that. So I think that there's a trade possibility there.
And Hagg doesn't make a ton of money, which for Arizona is a benefit because they're really not. They don't really have a ton of cap room as opposed to the years where they were taking on bad contracts to get to the cap floor. They signed a bunch of guys. They have contracts that they've eaten in other deals. So they're not a budget team now. They're sort of a cap team in a way.
Yeah.
So other interesting note here, just because I saw this last week when he scored a shorthanded goal. And he had a season to remember, not in a positive sense, but Colorado may have hit a a double, maybe a triple by signing Valerie Nikushkin to a one-year league minimum deal, because after going, I think it was like 15 or 16 games without a goal, he scored like his 5th in like 9 games. He's found himself. He's probably playing, he's either playing with Kadri or he's playing with McKinnon.
Yeah, I forget who's. I don't think it's McKinnon. I think it is.
I don't think it's McKinnon either, because they've been playing Landeskog and Rantanen since they came back. But if he's playing with Kadri, even if he's playing with one of their lower centers, that's even more impressive because he's taking advantage of opportunities.
He looks good. I mean, the skating's good. The skating was always good. The size is there. If he's got confidence, man, it's a great signing. Great signing.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, sorry. He played. It was like 60 games last year. No goals, no assists, and no penalty minutes. So I'm just looking it up right now here, just to give you accurate. Let's see, Nikushkin. Sorry, I'm sure this is really entertaining webcasting here, but I want to be. Here you go. 57 games, no goals, 10 assists for 10 points, no penalty minutes. This year, it's not. I mean, it's not awe-inspiring statistics, but he's got 5 goals, 3 assists in 26 games. But he was like.
It's production.
It was no goals after about 16 or 17 games. So he seems to have found where he's going, and that's a big help. So let's take some questions in the chat. If you have any questions here, put them in there. Let's see here. Huge wins for the Flames against the elite Colorado team. Am I being generous with my elite description? No, I think Colorado is one of the 2 or 3 top teams in the West. I expect them to be in the mix.
They could get a leader if they get Taylor Hall.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like they're the perfect fit for Taylor Hall in the sense they have the cap room and they have the assets. So now, does that mean that they will? I don't know.
My spidey sense tells me that there's going to be a trade in the next couple of days for Taylor Hall because they just called up Michael McLeod.
Okay.
So I think they're already trying to sort of set the team with the inevitability of Hall leaving and then maybe getting a defenseman to plug into the lineup. That's just my guess.
Esmir asked, doesn't Arizona have any questionable contracts? Well, I mean,
they've inherited some.
Yeah, here. Let's just as an exercise here. They took on Kessel's contract for Galchenyuk. Stepan at 6.5. They re-signed Schmaltz. Carl Soderberg 4.75 is an expiring contract. Dvorak extended at 4.45. Okay, questionable.
Wait, Soderberg at 7.5. What is the
4.75?
Oh, 4.75. It's still high for him.
Yes, but it's an expiring contract, and now I think questionable is Michael Grabner at 3.35.
He seems to have finally slowed down a little bit.
Right. But then they have bargains like Garland at $775,000. So
he's got 13 goals, 15 goals, something like that.
Demers was making a little under 4, so
that's pretty good.
Yeah, if they put him on LTI, and this is the problem, if they put him on LTIR, they open up that money. But if he comes back during the year, then they have to make room for whoever they go out and acquire. And the thing is, if it's a guy like Hogg, who is currently making 1.15, it's pretty easy for them to fit it in. If it was a guy
like Chris Pronger, I mean,
if it was a guy like Marco Scandella, who's on the block in Buffalo, then he's making just as much as Demers, and then it's tough unless they make another move to clear space. Yeah, they don't have Pronger on the books anymore. They still have Marian Hossa, though, Russ.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, maybe they can
trade Marian Hossa to somewhere.
Maybe they can press him into service.
I'm telling you, he's playing when that is up. He's going to be the first one of these guys to come back from the LTIR death and play again in the NHL. You watch.
Okay. Flamester says Bob Stauffer is reporting that the Oilers may have called Caleb Jones up because New Jersey requested he be brought up so they can see him play. Okay.
but I'm not buying that Hall's going there, but I can see it.
I honestly, I don't. First of all, I don't think Hall's going there, and second of all, I think Edmonton is stupid to make that trade if they're giving up an asset like Puljujarvi or Yamamoto, because they're not a Taylor Hall away from like winning the Stanley Cup. I don't know how much Taylor Hall improves their chances of making the playoffs. I keep saying that, and people think I'm nuts. I don't think they're a lock to make the playoffs right now. I really don't.
No, I don't think they're a lock.
You know, they lost to Buffalo on Sunday night, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of that game, and honestly, the only time they had any kind of offensive opportunities was when McDavid and Draisaitl were on the ice. Everybody else, it was sort of like Buffalo had the advantage when it was guys like Neal or whoever. It was just not. They're not a complete team. Do they have some good pieces? Yes, but they're not a complete team. Let's see here. Do you expect Zach Kassian to keep up his production? No, I don't.
He never has.
Right now, I think Zach Kassian is benefiting because he's playing with McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yep.
So it's like the old days. He
played with the Sedins for a while, and then all of a sudden he didn't.
Yeah, if you remember the name Warren Young when he played with Mario Lemieux or Rob Brown, their job was go to the front of the net and wait. Yeah. And Mario will get the puck to you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. They're not a Taylor. Toronto Greenhouse says they're not a Taylor Hall away from getting past the first round. Yeah, exactly. You may be echoing what.
Wait, is he talking about the Leafs or is he talking about Edmonton?
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Now, 5 Geeks asks, could Dubas get fired if the Leafs end the year horribly? No. I'm telling you right now, Kyle Dubas, I'm not saying he's
not safe forever, but he's safe for now.
Yeah, he's not untouchable. I mean, let's just say that this season has gone so far disastrous for the Leafs, but the firing of Babcock and the hiring of Sheldon Keefe, this was Kyle Dubas's first coaching hire.
Right.
First. So I think Funky Coldzadina, how dare I bring up the name of Warren Young to a Detroit Red Wing? Well, yeah, I mean, the Red Wings were stupid enough to sign the guy to a free agent contract. Okay.
Listen, Funky's probably too young to remember the bad old Detroit days, like we talked about not that long ago.
Like the Ray Stasiak free agent signing.
Yeah,
and they signed Adam Oates, but at the same time they signed Ray Stasiak as well. Hunter Dietz asks, "Who do you think will win the Pacific?" Looks like it's pretty up in the air. Well, it won't be the LA Kings,
right?
Or the Ducks, it probably won't be the Ducks. I'm looking at the standings right now to see how far they are behind. And I know Eck sort of is not the big fan of the way that this team is structured. Vegas right now is at 35 points, and Edmonton and Arizona are tied for first place with 40. I think Vegas is close enough that I think they have the best goalie in the division now.
They do. It's going down to the wire. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think, this injury to Demers is going to hurt Arizona, and they need more offense.
Yeah.
So I don't think it will be Edmonton. I think it's between Arizona and Vegas.
I mean, look, even the Vancouver Canucks are 6 points out of the lead. Like, it's going to go down to the wire.
Let's see here. Would a conditional first and a high-level prospect work for Hall?
One more piece. They need one more piece.
Yeah, I think it would probably be an NHL roster player. Not saying a star, not saying a young, but a player. Like I said, I wrote a piece a couple days ago saying if it was Colorado, it would be a deal like Alex Newhook, who they drafted in the first round this year, Nikita Zadorov, their defenseman, and a conditional first. Right. It would give the Devils a defenseman, which they're looking for, a left-hand shot defenseman specifically. It would give them a prospect who could play for them in a year or so, and a high draft pick. Yeah, I think that fits what they're looking for. Now, the reports is that Ray Shiro said he's open to anything. He's open to bigger deals. He's got rental guys. He's got guys.
Kaepernick's gotta go too.
Vatanen, yeah, and they've apparently put Miles Wood on the block.
I told you nobody wants Miles Wood anymore because the hockey IQ is lousy.
Yeah, and
again, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he took us all by surprise. Miles Wood with his speed. Now everybody has that speed, so he hasn't progressed.
Let's see here. I'm just reading this here. With contract issues and the like, do you think that moving the trade deadline back and killing the cap for a year would be a good idea? Okay, they can move the deadline back. I mean, if you're talking about moving the deadline to say mid-January,
the deadline's irrelevant anymore. It just we have a trade deadline day. But really, we're always talking about the B and C kind of deals. The A deals are already done way before that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, they're never killing the cap.
No.
Yeah, if you're talking about like giving them a 1 year moratorium on the cap, no.
Now I like trade deadline day because I'm worth my weight in gold because of all the prospects that get traded and young players, and of course, people come to me, so I'm happy on that day.
Yes, well, at least one day you're valuable.
That's right.
As for me, it's the other 364 days. All right. We've had enough fun and frivolity for one day. I'm going tonight to see the return of Ryan O'Reilly. Actually, I think O'Reilly was here last year. So after the
I don't know if he played though.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that it's been made. I have to look it up, but
I know he hasn't played with a ring on his finger.
Yes, and I'm sure. Or is he gonna come onto the ice in practice carrying the Conn Smythe Trophy just to rub it into the face?
Oh, I would just do the pregame skate with my ring on.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd get some cheers from Sabre fans. But Sabres playing the Blues. Sabres went 1-1-1 on their Western Canada road swing, and the Blues lost to the Leafs on Saturday. So it's the first game after that. Leafs are playing on the West Coast in Vancouver. That should be a low scoring affair, Russ, don't you think?
Yeah. I do want to mention that I just purchased tickets for the Pee Wee Herman's having a tour. And he's going to rescreen Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Now, the funny thing about that movie, it's 35 years old.
Yeah.
And two of my best friends, I dragged kicking and screaming to that movie. They're like, oh, my God, it's going to be horrible, stupid. And they loved it, right?
Right.
And I've learned a couple of key things just recently about it. So I'm interested in this tour even more. So, like Phil Hartman and Pee-wee changed the script all the time. The bicycle didn't even get added until like almost the time they were filming. So they completely changed the script. Pee-wee, I guess, said he was trying to copy a Disney movie, and then it went a different way. So there was that. So I didn't know Phil Hartman was that involved with the script, but he was, and they used to do it over coffee. That was Tim Burton's first film. I didn't realize that.
Wow. That I didn't know.
And it was Danny Elfman's first film.
Yeah.
So Danny Elfman, God, he's composed everything.
Batman and a few others.
A lot of things.
I think he did. Actually, I think he did Back to School with the Rodney Dangerfield movie, but he also did Edward Scissorhands and a few other of the Tim Burton movies.
And after 3 pauses, I did get through The Irishman.
Yeah, I watched the first half and liked it. I just haven't gotten around to watching the second half. I know what happens, so it's like right.
I mean, it's a piece of history seen through these eyes.
Right.
The one thing, even if you haven't seen the movie, living in the Philly area, the joke about the Schuylkill River is very funny.
Okay, so it would be lost on me. I haven't seen that.
No, it was early on.
Then I missed it then.
Okay, so basically, that was where they were dumping all the hot.
Oh, where they dump all the guns? Yes.
And they said there's a arsenal down at the Schuylkill River if anybody ever dove there. And there's always a big joke like, "Hey, when's a floater going to come up on the Schuylkill River?" Because, so it was pretty funny that took place. But there's a lot of things in that movie that make you. They really focused in on, like they focused in on Wonder Bread. They focused in on Stuckey's, which is a roadside place with those pecan logs. they focused in on. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, obviously, the Kennedy and Hoffa stuff is there. There were a couple of other minute things that they focused in on. I can't remember brands that are gone, but it's those kinds of things are kind of funny when they bring them up.
One last note here. When you're a heavyweight champion and you weigh in and you're 20 pounds heavier than you were and you were fat when you won the heavyweight championship, that's sort of a sign you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Who is the heavyweight champion that did that? I don't know.
Oh, Ruiz, the guy who just lost it to, I was going to say Dakota Joshua, but it's Anthony Joshua. That's where my mind is. All right. Good show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks. And Anna. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz,